Forum for Capacity Building in Agriculture, RUF Forum as we call it. This is a pre-UN Food System Summit dialogue on youth as food system actors and transformers, global voices for inclusion. My name is Akwama Yeboah Victoria, and I'm a student of Earth University. I'm so honored and glad to meet you all here, and I'm going to be your moderator for this program. It's wonderful for us all to meet on this online platform to have this dialogue and share our thoughts on the topic on board. And considering the challenges the world is facing related to the food systems, this session is very crucial and it's worth it. So today we are going to have diverse ideas shared through our talks from resource persons from around the world to mobilize global youth voices for inclusion in the Food System Summit Declaration. For which reason RUF Forum has organized this webinar. And as a young person who seeks to be a change driver personally, I'm hoping that after this program, I'll be inspired to keep pushing forward and do my part in ensuring a sustainable food system. And I hope you too. So I entreat all of us that we should be attentive to today's program, participate, and also we will see how these ideas will help us rethink and transform our food system. So without much ado, well, I will say a little. I'm a student of Earth University, and my school is a private non-profit institution that is located in Costa Rica. And it was implemented with an educational model to accomplish a unique vision to form leaders with ethical values to contribute to sustainable development and to construct a prosperous and just society. So Earth University model of education focuses on 4 main areas. And these are, the model focuses on scientific and technical knowledge, social and environmental awareness, ethics and values, and also entrepreneurship. So without much ado, we'll move on to have a welcome address, and I would invite Dr. Florence, I'm sorry if I'm not able to mention the name well, Nakayiwa, to give us a background to the UN Food System Summit 2021 and the national and regional dialogue. Dr. Nakayiwa is the Deputy Executive Secretary, Planning, Resource Mobilization and Management at the Regional Universities Forum for Capacity Building in Agriculture, RUF Forum. She joined RUF Forum from Makerere University, where she has been the Director of the Planning and Development Department. She has been the Director of the Planning and Development Department, and she has over 20 years experience in the higher education sector in Africa. She brings vast experience in institutional development in higher education, policy engagement, development partners collaboration, and partnership development and networking to the RUF Forum Secretariat and its wider network at large. Ladies and gentlemen, please let's welcome Dr. Nakayiwa. You're welcome, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Victoria. You're doing very well with the pronunciations. So you did it perfectly well.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. It is a little bit refreshing to see these young minds and young people taking charge. So I welcome you all to this dialogue, which is a pre-Food System Summit dialogue organized by RUF Forum. I'm going to share my screen to give you a snippet of the food system dialogue. I know you have had interface with it, but what does it mean for RUF Forum in this youth summit as we are having it? So sharing my screen. Is that okay? Is it visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Okay, so we are looking at this dialogue as one of the independent dialogues that are being organized by RUF Forum, well noting that RUF Forum as a universities network brings forward the youth as members of this, variable members of this network, since we deal with universities, we deal with communities, we deal with TVETs, we deal with out-of-school youth, and we know that youth are a constituent component of universities and the work that we do as the Regional Universities Forum for capacity building in agriculture. So in this dialogue, we are looking at the youth as food systems actors and transformers, and we want to have these voices captured by the food systems dialogue that will take place in October this year. So what is the rationale? The rationale for the food system dialogue in general is to deliver noting that delivering the SDGs cannot happen without ending hunger, malnutrition, and without having a sustainable and resilient climate compatible agriculture and food systems. We know that the SDGs we are on the race to the SDGs, but without us ending hunger, then the SDGs cannot be attained. So you will notice that the food system dialogue is coalesced around the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And we note that interventions must be people-centered and based on human rights and social justice. Therefore, it has to be inclusive, and all actions have to be taking in consideration the youth, take in consideration the women, take in consideration the people with disabilities. That is how we can promote the Sustainable Development Goals. So what is the Food Systems Summit intending to achieve? It is a launch of new actions, solutions, and strategies to achieve healthier, more sustainable, and equitable food systems. In this, the objectives are to raise awareness and public discussion on reforming food systems to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, develop the principles to guide our governments and other stakeholders to leverage the food systems to support the Sustainable Development Goals. In this, we are also looking at, for Africa, Agenda 2063. And I know that for other regions of the world, there are equally pertinent frameworks that are followed that we need to hold our governments accountable. And then also to generate action towards Agenda 2030, which is the Sustainable Development Goals, to include issues of call to action at all levels of the food system. And then we also to create a system for follow-up and ensure summit outcomes drive new actions. So we have to make this actionable. And this, therefore, as I have mentioned before, involves a series of dialogues leading to the UN summit in October 2021. This year is a snapshot to demonstrate that it is a Peoples and Solutions Summit. It is the framework of the summit, which has an advisory committee. It has a special envoy whom you are all familiar with. This is Dr. Agnes Kalibata, is the UN Special Envoy for the Food Systems Summit. But it has a scientific group that looks at the different aspects that drive the food systems in Africa, food systems in the world, I'm sorry. And then it does have action tracks, 5 of them. I'll shortly show you these action tracks. And there is a champions network. 100 people have been designated as champions for the food systems. And I'm glad to report that Professor Adipala Ekwam, the Executive Secretary of RUF Forum, is one of the champions under the Food Systems Summit. But you will note that for this to be actioned, we have dialogues. These dialogues fall in 3 categories. We have member state dialogues, and I'm sure some of you have attended or have heard about these member state dialogues. We do have the global dialogues. The global dialogues are broader and bring all the member states together, and even the summit itself will be a global dialogue. And then we have what we call independent dialogues. These are organized by all stakeholders, irrespective of their inclusive age, gender, affiliation. It is independent dialogues to discuss issues that affect food systems. And then they will culminate into the UN task force. We know that in July, there will be a pre-summit, which will take place in Rome, and this will discuss all these dialogues that we have been having since the beginning of this pre-summit issues, and then it will ultimately end into the UN General Assembly and the summit in October 2021. So this is a snapshot of the framework for the summit where we fit in, and they do have a digital platform. If you visited the UN Food Systems Summit platform, you will see the different dialogues that are taking place and the different activities. You can also become a UN Food Systems hero in your own right as a youth who is interested in food systems. Like I said, the food system has 5 action tracks, and you can fit in any of those action tracks in the activities and the dialogues that we have. One is ensuring safe and nutritious food for all, because we know that we all want to eat. And the second one is shifting sustainable consumption patterns, because we are having a lot of urbanization, and we are leaving the foods that are healthy and going to those that are not healthy. But how can we talk about that? The third action track is boosting nature positive production at sufficient scale. The fourth is how do we advance equitable livelihoods and value distribution, because food systems cannot stand alone unless we have those additional aspects that go with it, plus building resilience to vulnerabilities, shocks, and stress, noting that we have just experienced one of those key shocks, the COVID-19 pandemic, that is affecting the resilience of different food systems on the globe. So those are the tracks, and whatever activities we undertake fall within the 4 tracks. And you must agree with me that these really are all encompassing as far as food systems are concerned. Why do we think as RUF Forum it is important to dialogue with the youth and food systems? We know that the food systems will have to play a big role in expanding meaningful opportunities for the youth, including providing fulfilling job opportunities. We also know that investing in the food system is a logical undertaking that only creates jobs, that not only creates jobs for the youth, but also helps to address the concentration of the global rural poverty and the movement towards inclusive growth. We also know that there is need to explore how young people can participate and benefit from food systems. We also know that if we are talking about the SDG commitment of leaving no one behind, then we must engage the youth. And we also know that even if we are talking about within the African context, African youth are diverse. We have those that are educated, we have those that are not educated. We have rural youth, we have urban youth. So it is a diverse group. So we are very conversant of that even as we engage in this dialogue. But we also know that it is our youth that are critical agents for change. They are the critical thinkers, they are innovators, and can influence food systems change through communication. But we also know, we are cognizant that the leaders of today and of tomorrow. Therefore, RUF Forum seeks to mobilize global youth ideation and voices that can be included, that will be included in the UN Food Systems Summit Declaration. So I want to thank you very much. May I request, Madam Moderator, that the Secretariat here plays a small clip about RUF Forum and the Food Systems Summit, if you allow. Thank you very much.
Yes, please, you can go ahead.
By 2025, a quarter of all young persons under 25 in the world will be African. This is our greatest capital, and they must be appropriately empowered into the intellectual capital that Africa surely needs.
We must develop the human capacity, for research and development. We must have scientists that are going to develop the right technologies for those crops and also for livestock. We must have scientists that are going to handle our food supply systems to make sure we have food safety. We must have people that are going to make sure we have agricultural mechanization. We must have people that will do extension systems. So you really cannot grow agriculture unless you have first-rate minds. And RUF Forum is one of those vehicles. In fact, it's an outstanding vehicle for developing a new cadre of young, talented Africans that can actually lead and spearhead a lot of this work that I'm talking about.
We need to encourage the movement of young people across the borders. If we can standardize the certification, it makes for easier cross-border movement.
Before having this network for particularly postgraduate programs, we're just looking abroad to maybe Europe or America to have postgraduate trainings. So this provided really options for us to send our students to the universities in the continent, which is very cheaper option and also high retention rate in the country, and of course a good research practically on our own problems.
The forum is key. It is contributing so much. It is putting together the young university graduates to be relevant to what Africa wants for agriculture.
Working with RUF Forum has been an eye-opener in a way, because we all, after doing masters, we all wanted to do, I wanted to do my PhD immediately before I forget whatever I did during my masters. But then the limiting factor was the money. RUF Forum just came with a pour of water on a big fire.
Through RUF Forum, I was funded to study research methods, masters in research methods at Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology in Kenya. The program was a good innovation because we were moving away from the traditional way of teaching, that is of doing the coursework, then going to the farmers to do research.
We've been able to see a number of things because of RUF Forum. We have attended biannual conferences where we linked up with different scientists, we learned from them. We have visited University, a place that we had never thought we could go to. We have been exposed to a number of things, and I am what I am today because of RUF Forum. I've grown to a higher level because of RUF Forum, so I'm very appreciative of RUF Forum.
I think that is, thank you very much. Please continue, Victoria.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nyakaiwa, for enlightening us on the objectives of today's gathering. And we are very glad to know the work that RUF Forum is doing across Africa and the whole world. Thank you very much. Please, as we move on, I would like to share with you some of the rules that will be guiding our gathering today. For the panelists, please kindly mute your microphone when you are not talking, and also unmute your microphone and enable your camera when you are about to talk. And also, we should check for the panelists, let's check the questions and answers box to see if there are questions directed to us. And you can also choose to answer live during the questions and answer session, and also respond by text using the Q&A box. For the attendees, please use the Q&A box to write any question you have. And you can also specify the panelist you are directing your question to. Let's also try to use the chat box for comments and interactions, and to use the language learning of preference, use the interpretation icon at the bottom of your Zoom window. Thank you very much. So we are going to move on. And also please, to the panelists who will be speaking to us in few moments to come, let's kindly stick to the time allocated to us. Thank you very much. So we'll have a guest address to this session, and we are highly privileged and honored to have with us today Mr. Frimpong. Mr. Frimpong is the program lead for agriculture for the Mastercard Foundation office in Ghana. His area of specialism includes natural resource management and project management. He has a wide experience in the design and implementation of sustainability interventions in the agriculture sector. In his current role, he works with other experts in co-creating impactful programs that open up opportunities for dignified work for young women and men in the agriculture space under the Foundation's Young Africa Works Initiative. He's passionate about the well-being of young people and enhancing the livelihoods of smallholder farmers in Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Mr. Fred Frimpong. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Victoria. Thank you for this opportunity. Distinguished panelists, fellow speakers, our gallant young people, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are joining us from. I bring you warm greetings from everyone at the Mastercard Foundation. And I want to say a special thank you to RUF Forum for inviting the Mastercard Foundation to be part of this truly remarkable conversation on youth as food system actors and transformers. When we received the invitation and the brief for this session, we were very much excited about the conversations that will be happening because of the crucial time at which this dialogue is happening. COVID-19 has impacted every single country and economy in the world, and is actually precipitating some recessions in most countries. Further, it has exacerbated the food insecurity situation globally, and especially in developing countries. So for most of us here today in this forum, I think that we have the biggest challenge that is facing us in our lifetime, but at the same time, we are also looking at the biggest opportunity to bring about transformative change to ensure that we can build collective resilience in food systems and ensure that, as Dr. Nakayiwa said, there is food access and food security and availability to all. I believe in our collective ability to create pathways to sustainable agriculture that can help address and tackle the challenges of insecurity, food insecurity that has been compounded by the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, we at the Mastercard Foundation believe strongly in the power of young people. So listening to Dr. Nakayiwa, all the words that were being used to describe young people as passionate thinkers, the innovators, we so believe in all those. And that is why in the year 2018, we launched the Young Africa Works Initiative, which we believe is quite a bold ambition to enable 30 million young people to access dignified and fulfilling work by 2030. We believe that, especially for the continent of Africa, our biggest asset are our young people, and we believe that that is also same for the world. And already in most of the countries where we are focusing on the continent under the Young Africa Works Initiative, we are seeing clear opportunities for agriculture to become the main pillar to deliver the Young Africa Works strategy and also open up the space in terms of opportunities for young people. So I am particularly excited to be here in the midst of young, energetic, forward-thinking, innovative minds like you, Victoria, and all your other colleagues who are going to be on the session today. And we look forward to engaging and listening to you, because for us, youth voices are very powerful and very strong to help us even understand better how we can help mobilize young people and get them to be able to open up opportunities within the agriculture space and value chains, as well as adjacent sectors that are enormous in providing the kind of pathways that young people require to be able to contribute meaningfully to ensuring sustainable food systems and ultimately ensuring that the agricultural landscape is held up in a more sustainable and technologically driven direction going forward. We believe that by involving young people in such fora and through decision-making and hearing their voices, we will be able to create the solutions that are required to make our food systems and agricultural value chains sustainable and attractive, and also an avenue for young people to thrive as entrepreneurs, innovators, scientists, contributors, and researchers. And as Dr. Nakayiwa said, we have a diverse variety and array of young people, so the opportunities that abound to be made available for young people based on what their interests are, what their backgrounds are, what their training and skills are, and what support that they'll be required to be given to be able to flourish. So we really look forward to listening and learning from you young people today, and we look forward to working together with other stakeholders to make young people truly food system actors and transformers for now and into the future. Thank you so much for your attention, and very much honored to be in this forum today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Frimpong. We are also glad to have you here. And there are some questions in the Q&A session, so please, the panelists, kindly check if a question is directed to you. Please, you could respond to the question. So we'll move on to the topic, to our discussion, and we are going to look at the context, opportunities, and the place of the youth. I will remind us that our topic today is youth as food system actors and transformers for global voices for inclusion. So I will start with a short presentation about the context, the opportunities, and the place of the youth before the other speakers would come in. So looking at the context, food system plays a major role in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. And the issue of how to feed the growing world population, address rural poverty, and also manage ecosystem goods and services, global environmental change have been a subject of concern for many, just as we have met here to discuss. And as the food system includes all activities such as production, processing, distribution, and consumption of food, food would be a common thread linking all the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, given the interconnected economic, social, and environmental dimensions of the food system. The SDG goals focus on addressing hunger, poverty, gender equality, health, climate action, sustainable cities and communities, which are the most compelling goals of the 17 goals. And these have important connection with the food system and demonstrate that a sustainable food system in a long run will contribute to achieving all the other 17 goals. There is a transforming way the world, there should be a transforming way the world should produce and consume food. And this will provide a promising future by, as part of achieving all the Sustainable development goal. Now coming to the youth represent a large size of population, and their reactions, let me put it this way, our reactions will affect our families, our communities, and also affect the world at large, our countries and the world at large. We play a very vital role in our own development as well as the society. So the challenges affecting the youth today would definitely have a tremendous effect on the quality of life. So there should be significant actions to advance the food system by including the youth. And to plan a sustainable and healthy food system, we need to integrate and innovate procedures. Undoubtedly, everyone partakes in food consumption, but not everyone partakes in the production process of food. So the youth has a great influence in the lifestyle and food habits, and could be positive or negative. It could be positive or negative. So there's likely to be, we are likely to become more independent in decision making around food and more responsible for providing for ourselves and others. So actions should be taken, investing in the food systems and creating opportunities for active participation of the youth. So looking at the place of the youth, I would mention technological innovation. The youth make use of technology and internet for a large part of the day, and we usually access information to inform and educate ourselves as well as others. So with the use of technological innovation, it will bring an integrated food system which would help us to reform the way we are doing things now, addressing some of the challenging issues of the current food system globally. There could be a change in the shape of demand of food through promoting linkages along the food chain using technological innovation. And talking about socioeconomic transformation, the youth has a greater influence in socioeconomic transformation. The UN has long recognized the young people as that the young people are major human resource for development and key agents for social change and economic growth. So as we know, poverty most of the time is often transferred from one generation to another. So breaking the cycle of poverty means empowering our young people with the knowledge and skills to help them reach their full potential and impact society. So the youth is capable of sustaining economies, and we have a greater influence on the socio-economic transformation. And moving on to the political participation, considering political participation, the youth have a major part to play in selection of leaders, which would determine policies that are being made. And many of the young people are active in politics and engage in campaigns during elections. And on the other hand, the youth also take political spheres, that is, many have the potential and desire to take up political positions. And even the United Nations has encouraged the youth to run for political offices, and with the not too young to run campaign, quote and unquote. So if people are conscious of the food system, if this group of people are conscious of the food system, it will go a long way to influence the governance of a nation. The last aspect I'll focus on is the opportunities, the entrepreneurship and then employment opportunities that the youth would be able to have. Talking about job opportunities, and unemployment continues to be an issue for the youth. So the agricultural sector is a decent work opportunity for the youth to engage in, and this would be the opportunity to engage them for active participation. And also development of transferable skills. There is a good chance the youth would be able to expertise and development leadership skills, problem-solving abilities, and other transferable skills that would play a major role in the development, which they can transfer to other areas, both professionally and socially. I will end by giving this takeaway messages that we should reflect on considering the topic that we are exploring today. So many people look at agriculture, first of all, encouraging the youth to participate in agriculture. Many people, especially the youth, and look at agriculture for illiterate or for rural people. And most people see it farming as outmoded or too much work or unprofitable. The youth need to be trained and empowered to value agriculture as a crucial sector for job creation, poverty alleviation, as well as nation building. And greater awareness of career benefits in agriculture needs to be built among the youth. Stakeholders and policy makers should put strategies in place to make agriculture appealing for the youth and bring them to active participation. Also, improvement of the youth in decision making. With less involvement in decision making, many young people would resorted to unproductive activities where they may feel recognized. So having they should not be denied the participation to take part in decision-making process, and their opinion should be also implemented when they are given the opportunity to air them out. And lastly, I will mention about greater use of technology. And the rise of social media and technology is an attractive tool for the youth. So people these days are much more connected to sources of information and with each other. So utilizing these challenges, these channels to this group of people will be very influential. It is a facet to help them spread knowledge and also build network and find employment. So the use of technologies would increase profitability in agriculture and facilitate new innovation. Looking at involving a technologically observed generation will require a greater use of technological solutions in our food system. I will end by my presentation by giving this quote that was given by the United Nations President, former United Nations President Franklin D. Roosevelt, when he said, we can, quote unquote, we cannot always build the future of our youth, but we can build our youth for the future. It is a reflection of what the youth can do to nation when well empowered to be agents of positive change. Thank you very much. I will stop share and I'll give room for my other panelists to continue. Next, we are going to have Mrs. Michael Maris speak to us. Michelle or Michael, I'm sorry if I'm not able to pronounce it well, but Miss Michelle Maris is a Master of Science student and junior lecturer in the Department of Agricultural Economics at the University of Free State, South Africa. She is one of the 5 postgraduate students on the RUF Forum CAP project led by the Department of Sustainable Agriculture at the UFS. The project aims to improve the competitiveness and profitability of small-scale wool growers by integrating them into the value chain. She is interested in using value-adding activities and niche marketing to improve the market access of small-scale emerging farmers. She has worked with farmers in Zambia and several regions across South Africa since her undergraduate years. She is passionate junior lecturer who loves to practice innovative teaching techniques from her classroom to the industry. Hello, Miss. You're welcome. Please take it away. The platform is yours.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone joining us from around the world and to my fellow panelists. It is such a privilege to be here today. As we've just mentioned, my name is Michelle Murray. I am in the fortunate position to be one of the students that are associated with RUF Forum. I'm currently doing my master's degree in agricultural economics on a RUF Forum project, and it is such an honor to be here with all of you today. I'm going to be following up a little bit on what Victoria has just shared with all of us, just regarding a little bit of the context for the youth that are trying to integrate themselves into the food systems across our whole world today. So I would just personally like to start off with this quote from J.J. Mapes that I think really summarizes the importance of agriculture and food systems really well. And he wrote that agriculture is a fundamental source of prosperity. If agriculture goes wrong, nothing else has the opportunity to go right. And I really think that this quote is one that we need to keep in mind throughout this entire discussion that we're going to be having today. We all know that every single day we are more dependent on the food that we're consuming than almost anything else in our environments. And we also know from a production perspective that hungry people don't work as well, they don't produce as well. And as we also know that agriculture really is the foundation for development. So there's really no better place for us to place our emphasis and to have these discussions about where the youth is going to get involved in achieving these sustainability goals that we have for 2030. And I'm very privileged to share this passion for agriculture and with the food system and for food systems that all of us in this discussion have today. So just moving on, as we've mentioned, we have the biggest youth in the history of the world currently today. The UN estimates that we have approximately 1.2 billion youth members in the world today, of which about 1 billion are situated in developing countries. So there's this increasing demand for good jobs and the capacity for this youth generation to have good livelihoods, to be employed, to develop, to move forward in life. And as we've just said, we're really focusing on leaving nobody behind. But while we as the youth are being challenged with this huge undertaking of making sure that there's an opportunity for all of us to make a life on earth right now, we are also at the forefront for some of the most paramount issues the world has yet faced. And this includes things such as our environmental and ecological changes, where we're being challenged with global warming, climate change, pollution, the increasing adaptation of sustainable production methods and technological innovation. But we're also on the forefront of big changes that we're seeing on the political, social, and environmental fronts across the world today. So I just want to break down what food systems currently look like and where we can fit the youth in within that. So as we've mentioned, the food system in this world is one of the biggest employers of people. It accounts for a very big amount of human activity that is taking place in the world every single day, because it is literally the entire system moving from the farm all the way until the fork where we're actually eating and everything that fits in between. What this also means is that it is a sector that is very heavy on resource use. And while we're doing that, we're also facing the reality that food systems, the way they're looking today, are really contributing a lot to land degradation, pollution, and environmental issues. Currently, what we're also seeing is that our food systems are being more and more dominated by largely capitalistic firms. And this is a little bit of an issue because these firms are all the more vertically integrating and technologically innovating, which is causing them to employ less and less people as they're increasing their mechanization and all of these things. So I just want to touch on a few points. I know my panelists following up after me are going to go into this a little bit more deeply, but what I just want all of you to know is to keep these things in mind. So we as the youth today are a catalyst for change. We are able to bring new ideas to the table. We're able to introduce new production methods. We're able to change the moral values surrounding our food system. We are literally the generation that is able to change the way that things are for the better. What we've also seen recently is this rise in ethical consumerism and socially responsible production. We've seen that there's an increased market for products that are produced locally, that are produced on an environmentally friendly way, that are produced in a way that actually stimulates employment within developing countries for small-scale farmers, that actually integrate the youth and that are increasing the social responsibility that this generation is taking over the food system and the future of the world as a whole. Another point I just want to elevate with you is that we really need to focus on bridging the education gap. The reality is that we have thousands of graduate students in the agricultural sector entering into this wonderful system, but what we're also seeing is that there's a gap, because we also have thousands of students that have not had the opportunity to have secondary or even tertiary education. And we as the youth have the responsibility to bring that balance about, to go and find jobs where we are going to be able to bring some of this knowledge that we're privileged enough to have and to share it with those that have not yet had those opportunities. Another thing that's really important is that we start educating people about the advantages of decreasing the distance from the farm to the plate, teaching people about the importance of local production, teaching people about the importance of socially responsible production, etc. And then the final point I just want to bring to light is that technology can really be a friend, but it can also be an enemy. And it's our responsibility to make sure that we keep technology in the position where it is a friend. We can use technology, social media, all of these things to our advantage to share information, to educate people, to increase communication, to educate our consumers, to educate our producers, etc. But we also need to be careful, specifically in our developing countries, to move towards an industrial food system where we are starting to replace people with machines. And at the end of the day, one of the main things that we need to fix in the food system is that we need to employ as many people within the system as possible. Because if we go back to that quote that we just read, we know that agriculture is the fundamental sector for development. And we need to make sure that we need to get as many people involved within this sector as possible in order to move closer and closer towards achieving these sustainability goals. Thank you for having me today. It's been a big privilege. I'm going to be passing on to my next panelists now. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Before we move on to the next panelist, please, I would advise the panelists to be checking the Q&A box for questions that our attendees and everyone will be putting. So we are going to invite our next panelist to speak to us, Mr. Intiocom Divine. Mr. Intiocom Divine recognizes the crucial importance of the youth in building a resilient, sustainable, and prosperous agricultural sector in Africa. This passion drove him to start the Climate Smart Agriculture Youth Network, CSAYN, of which he is now the managing director. Teams in 65 countries work to raise awareness of climate smart agriculture among the young men and women, educating them in the benefits of sustainable approaches to increasing agricultural yields and resilience. Alongside his role in the CSAYN, Dr. Intiocom was elected as the African Continental Vice President of Youth in Livestock, Fisheries, and Aquaculture Incubation Network. By providing business incubation and powerful networks of support, the network aims to build an Africa in which youth-owned enterprises in animal resources contribute to poverty reduction and food security. In addition, he was equally nominated as one of the Food and Land Use Coalition International Ambassador in 2018. He is also a UN Food System Summit 2021 champion. We are so glad to have you, sir. Please take it away. The platform is yours.
Yeah, thanks very much, Yeba, for this brilliant introduction. Though it's really a pleasure being here. It's a pleasure being here. I'm so happy to share my viewpoints and my experience as well. Yeah, looking at the current situation or where we're talking about the food system, I'm so delighted to inform you that CSON Global, which I represent, is leading this independent dialogue globally. We've been able to organize close to 54 independent dialogues around the whole world. And then we've equally decided to say, okay, let's bridge the communication gap of this summit process by translating the handbook into local languages, which of course we've started with Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe will have the copy of Zimbabwe translated already in their local language. So I'm so happy, really. I think this generation of young people whom we are actually going to shape the next generation, define what we want to see in this era of the decade of action. And the food system summit is coming at the moment whereby the food system actually has actually been broken, yeah, because of the climate crisis. Now we're talking of the health crisis. So how do we make sure that nutrition and food security is at the center, at the pillar for us to actually deliver, while looking at cooperation as one of the key enablers to moving forward to achieving the SDGs and the SDGs, and equally making sure that we create jobs for young people in this era. That's why at the level of CSAYN, we've been able to set up what we call the Center of Excellence. In Africa, it has been located at Kenya University in Kenya. In India, we have for Asia. In Europe, we are working that out to have a Center of Excellence for the European young people, whereby they're going to be sharing their best practices, being agriculture, agribusiness, livestock, animal resources, actually. And then making sure that we exchange knowledge between the global south and the global north. That's why we've been able to sign some very key partnerships with the Inter-American Institute for Cooperation for Agriculture based in Costa Rica. So they are hosting the Center of Excellence for Latin America, the Caribbeans, and equally Americas. We equally have a group in Canada, very, very strong, whereby we think that we cannot transform this food system without engaging all the parties. That's why of recent we had a very interesting dialogue with Canada, whereby Pauline Christian, who actually organized that in Canada, and they invited me to give a keynote to young people in Canada and some of the lecturers right there in York University and many church groups, because we realize that the faith-based organizations are equally very good partners to making sure that we transform the food system, because they deal with a lot of community-based activities. And with this, I really feel very comfortable that the RUF Forum organized this session, because it enables us as young people to making sure that we address and achieve this new generation of mind thinkers. And happy to inform you that at the level of the UN Secretariat for the summit, there's a youth focal point. And then there's equally a youth community of practice, whereby young people around the whole world actually share their viewpoints on what they feel they want to see at the summit and beyond. And this summit is actually different from other summits because it's actually having three different fronts. The pre-summit itself, which is going to be in July in Rome. The summit itself is September in New York. And then the post-summit, which is next year, to actually deliver on the key actions and the key recommendations from the summit in September. So let nobody be left behind, actually. And that's why we're actually at the level of global CSAYN, we are engaging people living with disabilities, where we are transcribing the handbook into Braille, because we realize that communication is key in everything we want to do. And those actually were the key actors to the food system transformation at the rural youth and the rural youth and the rural women. And why not equally involve the migrants and even the refugees, the international displaced persons? So that's why we are very, very excited to be part of the discussion. I don't know how many minutes I have because I wasn't there very early, because I can talk like this till 8 o'clock tomorrow. So because of the passion I have. Yeah, the next agenda I want to address here is the issue of the private sector. We can't actually achieve or transform the food system if we don't engage the private sector. That's why usually I talk of the 3 C's, which of course I actually quote the ICA people here. The cooperation, one C stands for cooperation, the other one stands for COVID, the other one stands for climate. So if those 3 nexus is actually addressed, then we are very sure that what we are doing, we are on the move in a very, very good path. And Africa being the youngest population so far, and this generation being the youngest population worldwide, by 2050, we shall have young people less than 30 years on this planet. So if they are not capacitated, and that's why we thought it very wise at the level of CSON to come up with the idea of Center of Excellence, where they're going to be trained 2-3 weeks. We equally have partnership with institutions like Purdue University, where we are currently working with together to making sure that we educate young people from Africa or from different CSON countries, go to Purdue like for 2-3 weeks for training. But now, and students from Purdue leaving Purdue to come to CSON countries. But now we are doing that remotely due to the COVID crisis we have. We are hoping that in the near future, things are going to be stable and we'll be able to make these movements. So really, I think that the strong commendation, one of the things I will actually highlight is that everyone on this call should be able to sign up as a food system euro. Yes, that's number one. And secondly, let's try to see how we can contribute to the independent dialogues. Let's try to organize as many independent dialogues as possible. That should be one of our commitments. And the second and the third thing should be, let's involve our voices. Let's actually contribute to the national dialogues by the member states. Yeah, because the dialogue, as you know, the summit has 3 different fronts, 3 different dialogues. You have the independent dialogues, the global, and then the member state dialogue. Let's see how we can contribute to any of these dialogues, because if we don't do that, our voices will not be heard. And we shall keep complaining, because I say complaining is never going to be a strategy for success. So let's see how we can actually step up and move forward and making things happen. With that, I thank you very much, and greetings from WFP country office in Yaoundé.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. That was great. I believe that we are all listening. We are going to have our next speaker speak to us about youth in active service for marginalized in fragile society. Lessons from AUB interventions with refuge communities. And we are going to have Miss Leah Salame from American University of Beirut, Lebanon, speak to us. She is a graduate student in the food security at the Faculty of Agricultural and Food Sciences at the American University of Beirut, AUB. Ms. Leah also, in light of the rising vulnerability amongst the population in Lebanon, especially in rural areas, Leah's thesis focuses on youth economic crisis and the return of the land, quote unquote. This coincides with her latest professional experience as an assistant project coordinator for the Women Economic Participation Project, WEP, in the Environmental and Sustainable Development Unit. The WEP project aims to contribute to the empowerment of vulnerable Lebanese and Syrian women in Lebanon. Working with marginalized communities through AUB allowed Leah to develop an understanding of inclusivity from both an academic and proactive standpoint. Please, if Ms. Leah is around, please, the podium is yours. You can go ahead with your presentation.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Victoria. So I'm Leah Salame. My name is Leah Salame, and I'm from the Faculty of Agricultural and Food Sciences in the American University of Beirut in Lebanon. As Victoria mentioned, I'll be speaking about youth and active service for marginalized and fragile societies. And I'll be sharing my lessons from my personal intervention through AUB with refugee communities. I'm going to start with putting into context the case of food insecurity in Lebanon through presenting the 4 pillars of food security. As you can see, we have, so all of which have problems in Lebanon. So for example, availability, we have issues with subsidized food recently. And following the Beirut blast, we have issues with imports through the port, although we heavily rely on imports. Accessibility, so through income and purchasing power after the currency devaluation. So people do not have enough money to be able to buy, to be able to live as usual. Utilization with issues with food safety and food quality, health and sanitation after the especially after the global health pandemic, so the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as stability with price fluctuation, currency devaluation, political factors, the Syrian war that affected both Syria and Lebanon, and the economic crisis. So all of this has an impact on the food and nutrition insecurity, especially of vulnerable people, which lead to an increased risk of vulnerability among the population. So, for example, the World Bank stated that the 2018 estimates of 33% Lebanese living in poverty risks to reach 50% if the economic situation gets any worse. And it is getting worse, especially because of COVID-19 and the current economic crisis. And so how, as a youth myself, was I able to get involved in this? AUB, the American University of Beirut, allowed me to have my latest work, my latest professional experience through the Environment and Sustainable Development Unit with the Women in Economic Participation Project, which is funded by Canada through UNDP. We are one of the implementing partners. The leading partner is ACTAD, another NGO in Lebanon. This Women Economic Participation Project aims to empower Lebanese and Syrian women in 2 governorates in Lebanon. Through 2 outcomes. We have the first one with the expected result of Lebanese and Syrian refugee women to have the strength and capacity to integrate into a labor market and value chains. We do this through capacity building and trainings and value chains in agriculture and non-agricultural value chains through the establishment of demo plots and group coaching. We have the second outcome as well. The expected result would be that women-led businesses and cooperatives have improved productivity and competitiveness and have increased access to relevant resources. What we do is empower small and medium-sized enterprises, co-ops, and startups. So where does the youth fit in all of this? The developing world is experiencing its largest youth cohort ever, with more than 1.3 billion people between the ages of 12 and 24 years old. As we can see in the graph, we have more youth in 2005 and even now more so than in 1950, with the bulge just is at the level of people aged between 12 and 24 years old. But young people are an essential part of a household, community, society, region, and the world's development. So empowering youth would be us empowering our society and our community. However, we face an immense problem of unemployment, especially in the Arab world, with a 30% unemployment rate compared to 12% worldwide. And in Lebanon specifically, we have 17.82% unemployment rates. So AUB, through my academic standpoint or through an academic lens, allowed me to study this and study a way of finding a solution. So this is where my thesis comes in place. It's about youth, economic crises, and the return to the land, the case of agricultural and livestock farming in West Bekaa. The objectives of my thesis would be to understand why youth are not on the lookout for employment in what can be considered essential fields, even when the macroeconomic conjuncture directly points at it. We examined a systemic problem that renders youth averse to farming despite existing pull factors, and I will analyze the ways in which youth are a catalyst towards reducing risks of food and nutrition insecurity. So my lessons learned through AUB and my key messages to all of you would be that, first of all, integrating a bottom-up approach when addressing marginalized communities, help NGOs and other organizations find the optimal and most suitable way of tailoring their activities to vulnerable people's needs. So by listening to people, we would be able to help them more. Empowerment of youth, so providing the youth with the right resources would give way to an empowered community, society, and at a global level. It would also enhance food and nutrition security. And finally, inclusivity. If our approach is not holistic and inclusive, it will ultimately feed back into and uphold the systems that create this inequality in the first place. Thank you so much. If anyone has any question, you can find me on LinkedIn or Twitter. And thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing your experience with us. We are very grateful. And if you have questions for Ms. Salome, you can also put them in the chat. She will address them. Thank you. So we'll move on you're welcome, to our next panelist, Mr. Anthony Owe Ebitimi, who is going to speak to us about building a business dream by gaps in food system. Case of poultry deficit in Nigeria. Mr. Owe is an award-winning entrepreneur in the agriculture and technology space. Inspired by the 2011 East African drought while living in Kenya, he founded CsoN Farms in order to democratize investment into the poultry industry. Poultry challenges of access to finance, access to market, and life skills for smallholder farmers. To further deepen the solution to access to market and inspired by the COVID-19 pandemic, he founded Kitchen Palace, an online and physical chicken outlets to reduce post-harvest losses and increase incomes for smallholder farmers. He holds a BSc in International Business and Finance from United States International University, and he is an MBA candidate at Business School, Netherlands, recognized by the President Obama as an Obama leader in 2019 for his work in the food security space. He was also named among top 20 young innovators by RUF Forum in 2019. In 2019, he was also named top 40 under 40 CEOs Africa and top 35 under 35 most outstanding young Africans. Wow, we are glad to have you, Mr. Owe. Please, the platform is yours.
All right, so can you see my screen?
Yes, please.
Okay, yes. All right. Okay. All right, thank you so much for having me. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everyone, from where you're joining us from. So my name is Anthony Owe, and I bring greetings from Nigeria. So my own presentation basically is going to be about telling my own journey, my story, and I'm bringing the view of an entrepreneur on the field. So I'm talking on building a business dream by gaps in the food system, a case study of the poultry deficit in Nigeria. Okay. All right, so the genesis. So growing up in Nigeria, basically, like I think any other African country, we're meant to understand that agriculture is the job of those who are uneducated at the countryside in their villages who are very poor. And then everyone is supposed to go to school, get a degree, and then get a job in maybe oil and gas, in consulting, telecoms, and all of those very booming sectors. So that was also my own story. But eventually, when I was studying in Kenya in 2010 to 2013, I experienced this African drought. And it was at that junction that I picked interest in agriculture. So I felt if Africa is actually importing billions of dollars worth of food, it means that the countries where we're importing the foods from, they've grown enough food to feed themselves. And at the same time, they have enough to sell to us. And then if you are importing food, spending billions of US dollars to import food to the continent, it means that those monies are going to the farmers in those countries. So the myth of saying farmers are supposed to be uneducated, are supposed to be poor, are supposed to be at the countryside was broken actually. So I picked interest in it. And then when I came back to Nigeria in 2013, I started my first business called CsoN Farms. Now, CsoN Farms is currently focused just on the poultry industry. And this is because when I came back and did my research, Nigeria's poultry industry currently has a deficit of almost 60%. So our national demand is about 1.5 million tons, and we produce about 600,000 tons. So there's a 900,000 tons gap in the market. And agriculture is also very wide. You can't think you want to do everything at once and do it in all of that. So as a business person, I had to choose a niche for myself where there's a market for, and the impact also is very huge. So I started with poultry farming in 2014. That was my first business. Now, in 2016, 17, I had a challenge with my first business and I lost my capital as well. Eventually, I was able to get the hang of the business and it was doing very well. Now came in the second stage of, like I was struggling in my business when I started off in 2014. There are similar other smallholder farmers in Nigeria struggling with that same challenge in the poultry industry, looking for how to sell what they produce, looking for how to raise money, looking for how to increase their skills and all of that. So we started the first digital investment platform for poultry farming in Africa. So basically what we do is this, using a crowdfunding model and a digital platform, we go to the public. So those who actually want to invest in poultry farming or want to do poultry farming in their backyard, but don't have the skills or they have a 9-to-5 job. So they go to the platform, epoultry.ng. So they sponsor farms on that platform. Then when the money comes to us on that platform, we buy inputs for smallholder farmers, teach them through the farming cycle, buy insurance for them. And then at the end of the cycle, we take off the best from them, we add value by processing, and then we sell. Then the profit is shared into 3. So the first person who invested or sponsored the farm has a percentage in the profit. The farmer who actually grew the birds also has a percentage in the profit. And then we take 30% of that profit as our own revenue. And that has been going on for about 3 years now. Now, another benefit of that platform is that it also creates an alternative investment platform for the public or young people, as well as probably middle-aged people as well, to earn more income with their monies. Then last year, during the COVID pandemic, the issues came in of about people sitting at home, the lockdown, all of that. And we thought to ourselves, okay, sit down at home and then let's deliver this chicken to you. The realization we had during this pandemic was that a lot of people actually saw agriculture differently. So they now see agriculture as that sector that is tagged as essential. It is not shut down, and their farmers are allowed to move and go to their farms. So the pandemic actually was a blessing in disguise for agriculture in Africa. People take it more serious nowadays. Then we started doing online deliveries to customers. Eventually, we felt that we can turn this also into another business in itself. So we started Chicken Palace, which basically is an online platform as well, and a physical retail outlet, chickenpalace.ng, where those who want to consume chicken and chicken products and eggs can go to the platform, place orders, and have them delivered to them, to their homes, offices, or wherever they want. And we're also leveraging on technology as well as our logistics capacity. Then another important factor about this is that there are a lot of farmers who have challenges of actually selling what they produce. You know, in Africa, we actually always say the challenge of farmers is access to finance. That is a great challenge, but one of the greatest challenges also our farmers also have in Africa is access to market. A lot of farmers can't sell what they produce profitably. So we see farming as a chore, as something we have to do year in, year out, as what we do in our villages, as a culture, not as a business of value addition. So farming is actually a business of providing value, of feeding people, and at the same time getting rewarded for it. So Chicken Palace platform actually helps us also limit the post-harvest losses for farmers. So farmers don't have to worry about the market. They just focus on producing what they have to produce. We go in there, we pick from them, pay them profitably, add value by processing, package it, and then have it delivered to customers. And finally, we're talking about young people. The way I'm speaking, I don't look at the typical African farmer. So what I'll say is this for young people is, there's an opportunity in the value chain. As a young person, you're the one that has to erase the myths of agriculture or farming being the preoccupation of the uneducated or the poor. So bring the glamour, the energy you have as a young person, the innovation you have into what you do. So we're talking about poultry today. There's a wide range of different subsectors in the agriculture sector that you can also take advantage of as a young person. Talking about snails, you're talking about livestock, aquaculture, there's cassava. For instance, Nigeria produces the largest cassava in the world, but we import billions of dollars worth of cassava starch every year from outside Africa. Africa produces the largest amount of cocoa in the world, but we are not in the top highest producing nations of chocolates. So there's this abnormal thing, a situation that where we just have produced the oil inputs, take it out of Africa, and then we also borrow money from non-Africans to import back those processed goods. So young people with the energy and innovation has to see that there's a lot of opportunity in the value chain, and the glamour we're talking about, the prestige, we have to bring it into the value chain of agriculture. So opportunity for young people is, first of all, realize that Africa imports over 35 billion worth of food every year. I give a scenario of Netherlands. I'm doing my MBA in Netherlands. Netherlands is just, the population of Netherlands is not up to Lagos in Nigeria. Nigeria has 36 states, and Lagos is about 20 million people. Now, Netherlands is a country with population not up to Lagos, one state in Nigeria. That's about 10% of our population. But Netherlands exports food and agricultural items worth over $100 billion in 2019. Whereas Nigeria rather exported oil, 90% of our export earnings at about $24 billion US. So it's about divided into four, what Netherlands exported as food is what we exported as oil, which is not sustainable. So the opportunity in the value chain is very enormous and very huge. And then our population as well. The population is growing rapidly, 2.5% every year. It means that Africa has more mouths to feed. So technology is actually very important in this, guys. We have to ensure that the land we are using to produce, the factors of production are actually not increasing. There are some that are fixed. So we have to think of innovation, think of technology to ensure that with the little resources that we have, we're able to feed ourselves. And the joy is that by being able to feed ourselves, we'll create massive job and massive wealth in that process. So you can't say you're feeding yourself and you're still in poverty. For you to be able to produce food that will feed 1.3 billion people, it means that those guys go to bed with food in their stomach, they have jobs they're doing, they're earning income, they're able to buy things or buy the food, and everyone is happy in the continent. And then in terms of agriculture as well for young people, it's not basically about just primary production or processing as well. There's logistics. So your job can basically be ensuring that I move agricultural products or food from a point to another point for consumers, from the producers to the consumers. That's a huge business opportunity on its own. Processing is another opportunity on its own. In terms of sales, also distribution, then tech application. For those who are innovating in tech and all of that, I usually make a joke and say, Africa cannot take itself out of poverty. Technology is actually is an innovation that we leverage on other things to make it work. So we should ensure that our technology actually is not just something we just think I'm developing an app or a website. No, it must actually solve a challenge for it to work. And then our business models, change the business model. For instance, our model of saying, if we make profits each cycle, 3 people share the profit, the farm sponsors, the farmer itself, and our company. So models have to change to ensure that it is attractive. And then there's a lot of export possibilities. I have a friend who exports something they call Zobo, hibiscus flower, to the UK, to the US, and Canada. So adding value to what we have as primary products needs to be focused on. For instance, we're actually thinking of doing a research now on chicken sausages. So the way you have sausages from other animals, we're thinking of, okay, there can be sausages from chicken. So that's innovation as young people we have to do consistently to ensure that we add value to the value chain and make more money. And finally, I would say the business of what you do is more important than what you do. Some people think that innovation is just about passion, I'm solving a problem for users and all of that. The money is a component. If you can't fund whatever it is you're doing, it can be sustainable. Nothing actually is free. So we must ensure that while we are getting the part of agriculture right, the business of part of agriculture, ensuring that it's sustainable, incomes are earned, salaries are being earned, food is being added value to, the whole entire value chain has to be looked at to. So ensure that monies are made, not at the detriment of the society, not at the detriment of our ecosystem, but while we're doing that and protecting our ecosystem and the world, we should ensure that wealth is being created so that young people can be attracted to it and see it as an alternative to getting a white-collar job or putting on ties and staying in an air-conditioned office to think they can be, to think that's what success looks like. Success also looks like me, a poultry farmer in Nigeria. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much. I've personally learned so much from your entrepreneurship experience. Thanks for sharing all that. Please, the questions and answers session is still open. You can put your questions there. The panelists will address them. We are moving on to our next speaker in this session, Ms. Anne Kamande. She's going to speak to us about how young people are helping smallholder farmers in Kenya to grow their enterprises. Ms. Kamande is an MCS student of Science in Community Studies and Extension at Elton University, Kenya. She has an honors degree in agriculture and human ecology extension and a diploma in animal health. With a passion to impact communities and women in particular through training in agriculture, the goal is to get rural women to see agriculture as a business to start so that they take up better agronomic and animal husbandry practices for increased production, food and nutritional security, and livelihood improvement. She has also undergone training in participatory research, transformational leadership, creativity, personal mastery, talent discovery, agriculture, value chains, entrepreneurship, rural transformation and innovations, research and scholarship. Currently taking part in Peritrum Revival for Livelihood Improvement, she is a project officer in the Peritrum Production Increase for Improved Income Among Smallholder Farmers project in Subikia Sub-County. The project is executed by Good People International in collaboration with the Agriculture Sector Development Support Program, Nakuru County. You are welcome, Miss.
Good evening.
Glad to have you. Please, you can go ahead with your presentation. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I am glad to be here. And as we've been told, I'm speaking about how young people are helping smallholder farmers in Kenya to grow their enterprises. So I'll begin by talking about how they're involved in food systems enhancement. And when we talk about the food system, as we have heard from previous speakers, it's the entire process of food from pre-production to the fork where we are consuming food. And the two main places where youth are involved in Kenya is in markets and provision of digital services. And this they're doing by leveraging on their digital know-how and their tech savvy. And one example that I can cite is an entrepreneurship, a social enterprise known as AgriSolve Data World. And what this platform offers is the opportunity for smallholder farmers to aggregate, or the opportunity for big processors to aggregate and manage their smallholder farmers and be able to oversee or manage the way they produce their food, all the way from the inputs they're using, the farms, locations, so that the food can be collected and taken to the processing farms, the payments can be made, and so on and so forth. And so this is an idea born by a young entrepreneur who is providing a digital service to link, in terms of inclusion, to link a processor to many smallholder farmers as outgrowers who can be able to then get included and be able to get a good price, be able to get inputs within time, be able to get information on how husbandry practices and so on and so forth, to be able to produce a crop and at the end of the day have money in their pocket. So these are the ways in which youth are leveraging on the technological skills that they have. And in Kenya, there is a big boom in the way youth are getting involved in production of apps to take advantage of every space along the value chain, all the way from input acquisition to information provision, to good agricultural practices, to logistics and transportation, to markets, and ultimately, of course, to the involvement of smallholder farmers on the other end, that is the value addition end. And as we heard from one of the speakers, I believe Michelle from South Africa, she was saying that is one of the areas where there is a problem of inclusion, where there are these big capitalistic farms and they have the capital to be able to integrate vertically, and this can be an area of exclusion. But I believe also the youth are getting into a position to be able to solve this by being able to come up with platforms like this that can link smallholder farmers to processors, and also in the process be able to create opportunities for themselves. The other area is in incomes and employment, right from production all the way to marketing. Youth are being involved more and more. Programs such as Tujiajiri that are funding youth in agribusiness ventures, where any youth in agribusiness has an opportunity to apply for funds from production anywhere into anywhere to marketing. And by so doing, youths are creating incomes not just for themselves, but also for the people that they employ, and also for smallholders in the process. One of the ways in which they're doing this is by aggregating smallholders as outgrowers. Once they have developed a business model, they then enlist smallholder farmers as their growers for a particular crop or product. And these farmers then, through platforms like the ones I just described, are able to provide the necessary volumes that are needed so that then the whole process proceeds. And at the end of the day, everyone is able to have an income in their pocket. So the youth are also using their digital skills to enhance the way agribusiness is being carried out. One of the platforms that we have specifically here in Nakuru County is one known as Mkulimayang, where the logistics issue is being solved. And this is a platform that creates a space where a farmer can come and upload their product, what volume they have, when it's expected to be ready for market, and how much they're selling it at. And then on the same platform, a buyer is able to come on board and request the product. And then from there, the discussion continues and they're able to then do business together. So the end result of all this is enhanced smallholder agri-enterprises, which are enhancing the way the food system is proceeding. The challenges that the youth are experiencing include issues with capital outlay for value-added production as a challenge to smallholder farmers. This is a challenge because when the youth are attempting to work with these smallholder farmers to assist them to be able to do business, agriculture as a business, initial capital outlay is a big problem. So even as they want to promote appropriate technologies that are simple to use even on farm, a simple machine can be very difficult to acquire for a smallholder farmer. But with the right support, the youth are able to overcome this challenge as well by coming up with models. There is an innovation known as Itinga. Itinga is for production, at the production level, where you are able to lease equipment for mechanization. And how you do this is that this Itinga is equipped with GIS technology, and you're able to bring it on your farm and pay a nominal fee. And as a group of smallholder farmers, you're able to use that mechanized equipment for a particular crop during a cropping season. And the crop, the equipment is being tracked. And so the smallholder farmers are being able to access even these mechanization services. But of course, it requires partnerships that sometimes are not available to the youth. The other thing is scalability of digital innovations, which is being hindered by constraints to capital. All these innovations and platforms that I have described, there is the challenge of their scalability. For instance, Mkulimayang is only just now branching out of Nakuru County, which is only one out of the 47 counties that we have in Kenya. And so scalability is an issue because of capital issues among the youth. As far as production is concerned, in Kenya, land is historically inherited from parents to their children. And the average age of a farmer in Kenya is above 60 at the moment. And the farmers are the parents and are currently the custodians of the land and are reluctant to release it to the youth. So availability of land for young populations is still a challenge in Kenya. If young people want to venture into farming at production, they are usually forced to lease the land, which also now circles back to the issue of capital. So in terms of actions, if we could support agri-tech startups by young people to scale out by using flexible business incubation models and hubs, this would really help. I was glad to hear about the Center of Excellence in Kenya University. If these business incubation models could be more flexible so that it's not just the youth that wants to get involved in production that is being supported, it's also this youth who is developing an app, this youth who is developing a tech platform, who is being supported with capital to scale out. Then I believe the youth innovations could create a big impact in this country and in Africa as a whole. And also supporting value addition ideas among youth for industrial applications. This goes to what has just been described by the previous presenter about adding value to our raw products as opposed to exporting them. And so all these value addition ideas that I come across on almost a weekly basis among youth, but they have no capital capacity to execute. If we had a way of supporting these ideas for industrial application, for instance, I met a youth who had developed potato for starch extraction. And the first impulse that he had was to get a patent, because the fear is, I have developed this idea, but if I try to take it to an industry, most likely the idea will be taken from me as opposed to me being supported to actualize the idea. So if we supported value addition ideas among youth for industrial applications, I believe this will also continue, because potato is big in Kenya right now. If such an idea was supported, it is a big income earner and employment creator for youth and other actors in the potato value chain. So thank you so much for your attention, and thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Mom. I believe that we are all being inspired and encouraged by the presentations that we have had so far. If you just joined us, this is a pre-UN Food System Summit dialogue on youth as food system actors and transformers, global voices for inclusion. And we have had our first session of panelists speaking to us about the context, opportunities, and place of the youth concerning our topic today. We have some questions. We will have a short moment of reflection. I don't know if some of the panelists want to address some of the questions that have been put on the Q&A box through speaking or putting their video on. I would give you a few minutes if any of us would want to address some of the questions.
Victoria, if I may,
Okay,
thank you very
sure.
much. And I have really enjoyed the discussions. So I've seen a lot of questions around young people, their interest in agriculture, what the challenges are and all. What I want to say is that generally, for us to get young people into agriculture and interest, we need to understand that not all young people want to be farmers. We need to appreciate that. And we also need to appreciate that the opportunities within the agricultural space from farm to fork go beyond farming and production. So once we are able to take hold of value chains and explore the opportunities, we will be able to get them attracted. Number two, the old perceptions about the hoe and cutlass kind of agriculture needs to shift. And that is why the involvement of young people in innovating, bringing tech solutions and ideas is really, really crucial, because that is how you shift the narrative. So we in the foundation, Mastercard Foundation, believe in what we call creating agripreneurs rather than saying young people go into farming. And then underpinning all this, there are issues around skills development. There are general systemic issues that are inhibiting especially young women, because generally in Africa, there are challenges like access to resources like land and all that. Access to financial services is very key, and ensuring that these services are affordable will be crucial. So for me, there is a whole paradigm shift that needs to happen when we talk about agriculture and getting young people involved. And we need to ensure that the picture is placed in terms of providing the range of opportunities that are available from farm to fork across value chains, and ensuring that young people are supported with the skills required to take advantage of these opportunities, as well as supporting them with access to financial services, market linkages, depending on where they are acting. But we need them to be innovators. We need them to be interested in presenting solutions, tech solutions, technology solutions. We need them to be interested in providing services that facilitate value chain linkages, and ensuring that non-state and state actors can work together to create the needed policy environment to ensure that such small businesses created by young people can also thrive. That would be my general response to the needs for young people getting into agriculture space. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Frimpong. That was very insightful. I'll give him for one or two more panelists if anyone wants to address any of the questions or comments made so far in our first session. All right, I believe not. So we will move on straight ahead to our next session of panelists or speakers. And we are going to speak about building convergence for action. Building Convergence for Action. And our first speaker will be Mr. Maris Afonfere from National University of Agriculture in Benin. Mr. Afonfere is a PhD fellow at National University of Agriculture in Benin. He served as a junior research assistant in the Laboratory of Food Sciences and Faculty of Agronomy Sciences at the University of Abomey Calvavi, the UAC, Benin. He was granted a RUF Forum scholarship to pursue his master's studies under the Graduate Research Grant RU in 2015. He obtained an MSc degree in Agricultural, Food Science and Technologies at the Faculty of Agronomic Sciences from UAC. He was also awarded a 6-month RUF Forum Community-Based Field Attachment Program Award to scale out and disseminate his MSc thesis research findings. He is a founder of Bekoff Enterprise, specialized in the production of iron-rich biscuits and nutritive infant flour. As a PhD fellow, his research aims at exploiting the nutritional potential of local food resources to enhance micronutrient intake among children aged from 6 to 59 months in Benin. Hello, sir. You're welcome.
Okay, thank you very
We're so
much.
glad to have you. Please, you
Let
can.
me share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Please, it's still loading. Maybe you give it a few seconds.
Okay. It's okay now?
It's still loading. Yeah, it's okay now, yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Victoria. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, depending on where you are. I'm Maris Afonfere, PhD student at National University of Agriculture in Benin. I'm affiliated with the Laboratory of Food Science and Technology, Bioresearch and Human Nutrition at National University of Agriculture in Benin. And this lab is at developing new product-based indigenous knowledge and the valorization of indigenous food resources, such as the wild deep plants and the food-to-food fortification for better nutrition of children. The subject we are going to talk about is the innovation needed in Africa for food delivery. Firstly, I want to underline that the issue of food and nutrition security is still in the world, especially in Africa. When we take, for example, drink finger, it shows that the most of nutrition issue across the world is in Africa. We see here the Africa, where we have the 3 forms of malnutrition, especially the stunting among under 5-year-old children, the anemia among women of reproductive age, and overweight in adults. These three forms of malnutrition are still in Africa. It then appeared that most of Africa countries present the 3 forms of malnutrition. When we take, for example, also the percentage of undernourishment in the world, Africa and its 6 region, we can see clearly that
I think we are having some technical challenges.
We have lost the volume from Maria's.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
I think. So maybe you could, yeah.
African education is how to address this issue. Because of this problem in the world, such as hunger and food and nutrition security, FAO established that a 70% rise in food production is necessary to bridge this gap. However, this can be achieved by using the agricultural innovation. So what is the agricultural innovation? According to FAO, agricultural innovation is defined as the process whereby individual or organization bring new or existing products, processes, or way of organization into use for the first time in a specific context in order to increase the effectiveness, the competitiveness, the resilience to shock, environment sustainability, and thereby contribute to food security and nutrition, economic development, while respecting the natural resource management. So, what kind of innovation we need today in Africa? We can generalize the innovation that we need in Africa in two categories. We need the innovation in the food production and the innovation in food science. When we take, for example, the innovation in food production, this innovation aims at increase the productivity, the efficiency, and the competitiveness, and facilitate access to market. Mr. Anthony have addressed this issue when she gives his presentation. For example, in Africa, we need to the agricultural extension and advisory delivery through video and platform linking aspect. We need also to digitalize some our technical guides. You know, we have some many innovation, many technologies that we develop, and they are in the scientific paper. We need to digitalize this innovation in order to get a free asset for this innovation free in Africa. We need also to develop the real-time alert system for pest and disease management. In Africa today, we have many problems of pest management and disease. So we have to develop some application, namely the drone. We can use the drone to control the disease and to manage the pests in our field. Also, some platform need to be developed. A digital platform, for example, for linking agricultural actors. We have, for example, in Kenya, the Farm Channel application. In Benin, also, there is a digital application which the development is ongoing, the Pioneer application. This application aims at connecting the buyers and the producer of pineapple in Benin. We need also to develop the great irrigation system. For example, the soil power irrigation system. We have in Kenya the example of CsoN culture, which aim at give to the plants the waters. So when we take, for example, the innovation in food science, we can categorize the innovation in food science, in the innovation in food technology, and innovation in the post-harvest. All this innovation aim at reducing the post-harvest losses, which is very important because we have some statistics today who show that we lost most of our products in Africa. So we need to develop some innovation in order to reduce these post-harvest losses. When we take, for example, the innovation in food technology, we have to invest in large-scale agro-processing industry. If I remember well, Madam Anne has pointed out this issue of processing of our
I think we lost Maris again.
So possibly maybe you can
which need to be valorized. For example, we have the baobab fruit pulp, which are very rich in iron and vitamin C, which can be used in order to address the issue of food and nutrient security. We need also to ensure the food quality and the food safety of our products. Finally, we need some innovation in order to manage in the frame of post-harvest reducing. The issue of packaging in Africa is very important to be addressed. Some of our products are not well packaged, so the quality of the product will lose during the storage. So we need to address the issue of packaging. For example, we can use the modified atmospheric packaging, which is a technique which can conserve or we can preserve the quality of our product. The issue of local development of low-cost on-farm storage method as well as off-farm storage method are also important in order to reduce our post-harvest losses in Africa. By doing so, I think we can reduce the post-harvest losses, and we can contribute to the food availability, the food accessibility for the local population, and we can address the issue of reduction, the malnutrition, especially the micronutrient deficiency, which is still an issue in most parts of Africa. Thank you very much. And I want to thank RUF Forum for giving us this opportunity for participating in this important dialogue in food system. Thank you very much, and over to you, the moderator.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for admonishing us on innovations needed for delivering food across Africa. We are very much grateful for that presentation. We will move on to our next panelist. We are going to have Ms. Androniki Christaki from American Farm School, Greece, going to speak to us about learning from Greece and integrative education for transforming food system. Ms. Christaki is a molecular biologist from the Agricultural Research Service of the United States Department of Agriculture, UDSA, located at Thessaloniki, Greece. Her research interests involve surveillance of agricultural pests that pose a public health threat, primary mosquitoes and sandflies, epidemiology of vector-borne diseases, vector ecology and management technologies. She holds a BSc in biochemistry from St. Lawrence University in New York, USA, and MCS in New Food Product and Business Development from Peretz College of the American Farm School in Thessaloniki, Greece. Her research is focused on evaluation and development of alternative sources of food and feed with primary focus on environmentally friendly substitute to increase agricultural sustainability. Please, you're welcome, Ms.
Hello, thank you, Victoria, for the introduction, and hello to everyone. As Victoria said, my name is Androniki Christaki, and I am a master's student at Peretz College of the American Farm School. And I'm very glad to be here, and I would like to introduce to you our school's approach in bridging education with the field of agriculture. So, our school's mission is assisting in the development of the rural community by transforming members of the rural community to stewards of the land. Land stewardship is a philosophy that is integral to our mission as a school, but also to the conservation and improvement of the agricultural field. It is the notion of caretaking of the land and not just simply cultivating it. This is achieved by properly managing our natural resources to create new businesses, but also to expand the already existing ones and to make them more sustainable. Of course, this results in the creation of new job opportunities and the reduction of poverty and migration of the population. And taking care of the land, of course, also ensures the safety of the environment. Now, to achieve all of this, the rural community needs the support of organizations, especially when it comes to funding for the development of sustainable businesses in agriculture. Unfortunately, right now, the agricultural sector in Greece, as well as in many other countries, especially of the global south, is going through turmoil. This is because the agricultural field is mostly managed by individuals and firms who lack practical knowledge. A large portion of the population in Greece, as in many African countries, are farmers, yet our resources are not properly utilized. Despite that, the agricultural sector remains the locomotive of our national economy, and it contributes to the development of other sectors, such as tourism and logistics, all of which together assist in the preservation and the development of our rural communities. One impediment that the agricultural sector is facing is governmental restraints, especially when it comes to funding. And a caveat of the sector, which is very important, is family business succession, because we have a lot of businesses that start as farming businesses, but then the following family members are not interested, the youth is not interested in continuing in the family business, and this is becoming more and more common. And as a result, it is contributing to the problem of the agricultural sector ending up in the hands of people that do not have the practical experience. So the American Farm School is trying to educate the farmers, the stewards of the land, to encourage them, and especially to encourage the youth to tap in the potential of our natural resources in a smart and sustainable way. I would like to show you an example of how the American Farm School tried to integrate learning and education with the agricultural field. Hani Ializit is a small town in Kosovo of a population of approximately 10,000 people. Given the recent conflicts in the region, this area has remained underdeveloped, and it is also experiencing a lot of migration. So in 2013, the American Farm School started a project there where the school provided the education, the knowledge through training, mentoring, providing awareness for the environment and entrepreneur knowledge on how to create startups. And organizations such as Titan provided became the vehicle that were provided the funding to make the project come to fruition. So the organization, along with the American Farm School providing the education, and along with the rural community of the area, they all work together to develop dairy farms, to develop forest wood biomass processing facilities, blueberry farms, greenhouses, and overall an 81 family operations starting in 2013 until today. The project continues until today. This project has significantly developed the economy of the area. It has led to an approximate family annual income of 3,000 euros, and it has also created 15 new full-time equivalent working positions. And these here are just some examples of the operations, the family businesses that the school helped to create in the community. There's dairy, honey, fresh fruit, poultry, greenhouse and grape production facilities, native aromatic plantations, and forest wood biomass, and so on. So therefore, preservation of the resources for agricultural use is essential for the sustainability of the sector for current and future generations. This means that these fields here mentioned in the diagram, it's important, it's necessary for them to work in synergy for the preservation of our resources. So we need the education, we need the input of science and technology, we need also the experiential education and the research to work together with primary production and with the rural communities, the leadership at the moment, and of course we also need operational frameworks for investments. All of these have to work together, and all of these are integrated through our philosophy, which is the land stewardship. Thank you all for your attention, and thank you for inviting me to this dialogue. Back to you.
You're welcome. You're welcome so much, Ms. Krastaki. I would like to share a little bit about her school. The American Farm School is the premier institute in the Southern Eastern Europe for education and research in agriculture, food systems, and the environment. It was founded in 1904 by Dr. Henry House. The school continued to supply its hallmark learn by doing approach to educate students of all ages. Divisions include the preschool and elementary school of environmental education, middle school, general and vocational high schools, junior colleges and periodics, college of agriculture, environment and life sciences. The school's educational farm serves as the living laboratory and produces boutique product for the market. Also, the school's extensive scholarship program provides promising young men and women with an unparalleled education that leads to productive careers and sustainable communities. So that is the school of Miss Kristeki, and we are very grateful for sharing that presentation from your learning experience from Greece. Thank you very much. We will move on to our next panelist. We are going to have, I'm sorry if I'm not able to mention the name well, pardon me for that, Mr. Wang Juzi from China Agricultural University. And he is going to speak to us about lessons from China on avoiding environmental harm from agriculture and restoring affected ecosystems. So Mr. Junzi is a student at the China Agricultural University, CAU, China. He has international experience through exchange to Carleton High School, Minnesota, USA, and United Nations Advanced Teenager Training Program, New York, and New York, USA, Geneva, and also Switzerland. He has been involved in leadership as a head of organizational department, CAU International Communication Association, and head of study and reflection division, College Student Union. He has undertaken research in focusing on trade-off of phosphorus use during metabolism in HX2 bacteria. Secondly, he's also undertaking research on biological and abiotic pathways for remediating the CD polluted soils by applying organic acid activated low-grade phosphate rocks. Hello, sir. You're welcome.
Thank you, and I'm gonna share my screen. Let's see. Okay, so it's pretty a simple slide. So hello everyone, I'm Yuji Wang from China Agricultural University, a junior at Resource and Environment College, and my major is plant nutrition. So I'm honored here today to have the chance to make my voice on this forum. So when it comes to environmental problems, we might first think of soil salinization and desertification, etc., which often results from people release overbalanced waste into nature, and is more of a unidirectional behavior. But however, I'd like to invite all to extend our discussion range and take ecology factor under consideration. So that is the eco-environment, and that's the topic today. So here today, I'd like to use the locust plague as an entry point to share with you the past and present of the eco-environmental problems. So there are more than 50 species of locusts in the world, and every continent except Antarctica have locust plagues recordings. Among them, desert locusts and East Asian locusts are the most harmful ones. A locust plague can be a serious food security problem, which can cause millions of people to lose their rations, and even the vegetation in the way is destroyed on large scales, as we all know. And earlier last year, the locust plague in East Africa was raging. And this year, there are also observation reports showing that locust eggs are hatching. China, the country that was deeply affected by locust plague in history. In ancient China, the plague was almost as old as the history of agriculture. There were more than 800 large-scale plagues of locusts recorded in 2,400 years. And that's meaning that this country would suffer on average once per 3 years. Because the ancients didn't have enough ecological theories, so there were no innovation in the cognition of the causes of the locust plagues and management methods for more than 2,000 years. So what did they do? The measures adopted were extremely primitive. Nothing more than human capturing, setting fire, and even treated locusts as God and praying to them, hoping that the crops would not be that harmed. But of course, these measures were way inadequate in the face of trillions of locusts. Locusts in Chinese character, sorry, I forgot to turn my slides, but here's some pictures about the locust plagues. And what? Okay, so locusts in Chinese character, as shown in the first picture, are composed of emperor, which is the right part, and insects, which is the left part, indicating their original meaning is pests need to be controlled by the emperor. After the founding of People's Republic of China, the government attached great importance to this issue by work with experts and farmers to carry out governance work. A group of ecologists represented by Professor Shijun Ma, which is the person in the middle, officially began to use scientific methods to study the problems of locust plagues. And then they figured out the relationship between the occurrence of locust plagues and ecological factors such as climate, hydrological conditions, and vegetation coverage. Together with the governance cooperation, measures such as building dams in the birthplace, improving grassland types, and managing the Yellow River course were adopted, and locust plagues eventually disappeared in China. In the 1990s, people had an even better understanding of ecological balance, and they were more aware of the significance of ecological environment and sustainable governance. Instead of the dominant pesticides that were used in the 1930s, such as organochlorine and organophosphorus, people began to use biological agents such as locust microsporidia under the guidance of information technology. And this is also one of the achievements made by teachers of China Agricultural University. And China also cares about global food security issue. When locust plague broke out in East Africa and South Asia in April last year, many experts and scholars provided support. I was fortunate to interview Professor Long Jiang from my school, who went to Pakistan and made some change. Professor gave me a detailed instruction of his experience in managing locust plagues with local farmers and scholars in Punjab and Balochistan provinces in Pakistan. So firstly, they studied and realized the cause of the outbreaks of the plague, and they found that it was because of the continuous rainfall of the previous rainy season and more than normal precipitation, combined with the overall arid regional climate and accumulated locust eggs for many years that hatched together in the last year. And the picture on the right shows that a professor is cooperating with local experts and farmers. So after that, the plan was formulated according to local management. Local conditions, which was specifically divided into emergency management and long-term management. According to the habits of the locust and professors, their team caught them at night. And also unhatched eggs and nymphs were also dug out and removed so that they can prevent some future waves of locust plagues. And more importantly, observatories were established to prevent the future waves. So China has a long history since written records. She has been a large agricultural country. In thousands of years, there have been many general environmental problems, but generations of people have overcome them with wisdom and experience. Now, under the guidance of science and technology, sustainable agricultural operations can be carried out after weighing the pros and cons. Here, I have to say, no country is 100% perfect. With the continuous emergence of new technologies and methods, new problems will inevitably follow. But however, we should look at things from a perspective of development, and we have to believe that environmental problems will always be solved by a community of shared future for mankind. At this moment, the world is at a new crossroads in history. As young people today, with an international perspective, we should make this appeal. So in short, the experience from my view is that unity is always the best solution to the problem. And thank you for having me. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wan. Thank you very much for your presentation. We will take our last presenter. We have 2 more presentations. We'll take the next presenter, and then after that, we will have a short discussion, an open discussion where everyone can participate. So we are going to have Ms. Shelby Gagnon speak to us. She's going to speak to us about ensuring security using indigenous food systems approach, lessons from Canada. Ms. Shelby is the program coordinator at Indigenous Food Cycle, where she promotes and supports awareness around food sovereignty, security, climate action, and advocacy for the protection of the land and waters. She is an Anishinaabe Cree artist from Ireland First Nation, but has lived in Thunder Bay for most of her life. She uses multidisciplinary mediums to express and share her holistic feelings and perceptions through community-engaged organizations and projects. She is dedicated to expanding her knowledge and temporary take on traditional methods of arts, food, and healing practices for the indigenous community by working closely with youth, elders, activists, communities, and other artists. Hello, Miss. You're welcome. Please take it away.
Bonjour. Thank you. I'll just share my screen. And I think it's there. Bonjour Gakanawia, Shelby Indishnakas, Ireland and Donji and Namki Wakwadan and Mayangandodam. I just wanted to introduce myself in my native language. My name is Shelby Gagnon. I'm from Ireland First Nation, but lived in Thunder Bay, which is in Northern Ontario in Canada. And today I'll be talking about Indigenous food sovereignty in Northern Ontario, Canada. I work at the Indigenous Food Circle as program coordinator, and I'm also an artist that works in community. And just kind of to set the tone, a little picture of me harvesting some blueberries in my homelands. Blueberries are a big part of my identity. And I think we could all relate to food being a part of our identity as people. And before talking about Indigenous food sovereignty, I just need to address settler colonialism in Canada and the disruption of Indigenous food systems. So through settler colonialism, Indigenous people were forcibly removed off of our traditional lands. There was genocide and assimilation on our people. An example of this in context of food is this picture right here. This is the buffalo slaughter. So settlers slaughtered hundreds and thousands of buffalo and the meat and the food in order to kill off the Indigenous tribes and groups of people. This was more in the Plains Cree area, but you know, they did this all around Turtle Island. And when I refer to Turtle Island, I refer to Canada and the United States. Indigenous groups have, you know, faced this all over. And we see the impacts on the health of the land and our people in you know, malnourishment, you know, there's heart and kidney diseases, just, you know, bad health and relation to the land too, where there's just, you know, decimation and destruction and a lot of, you know, violence on the land. And also wanting to acknowledge the assimilation and residential school systems here in Canada. This week, there was 215 Indigenous children's bodies found at a mass burial ground. And, you know, looking in the context of genocide and assimilation and, you know, the effects of how we are now is how do we heal from all of this, you know, tragedy on our land and our people. So I think that is through food, you know, reclaiming traditional practices of Indigenous food systems and Indigenous food sovereignty. So a couple of images I have here. One is a moose just at the bottom right corner. That's a moose, and that's a big diet of Anishinaabe and Indigenous people kind of in this area. And, you know, bringing back those traditional practices of gathering and hunting and harvesting. Indigenous food sovereignty activists stress the importance of decolonizing self-determination and the inclusion of fishing, hunting, gathering as key elements as food sovereignty approach to sustainable food systems in Canada and broadly around the world too. You know, there's Indigenous groups all over the globe, and looking at those sustainable ways of gathering food and taking care of the land, as well as taking care of community. It highlights the complexity of issues of sovereignty, authority, individual and collective rights, equality, culture, and the redistribution of land and other resources. That's kind of Indigenous food sovereignty, and the work that I do here in Thunder Bay and in kind of the northern region of Ontario is more community-based projects. So I worked on a project called Understanding Our Food Systems Project. It was a partnership with the health unit here and the university, as well as 14 Indigenous communities. And what we kind of set to do was kind of 5 elements of it was engagement. So engaging community and Indigenous leadership in the community to determine what support they need for their food systems, and, you know, looking at food sovereignty and food vision goals and where they want to kind of see their community in the future and the health of their people. With that, we would support them and find connections with other knowledge keepers in the area. So looking at, you know, our elders and our knowledge keepers, we really need to honor that. And you know, youth is an important factor too in this, because, you know, it was lost through the system of colonialism, and we need to regain that knowledge back, you know, globally. I think there's so many different Indigenous food systems and ways that we need to kind of be looking at more in this context of like global food security, because that is, you know, taking care of community and taking care of land. And through that is action and knowledge co-creation. So very like on the ground, community-based, action-based, you know, working with your hands and getting the food and learning how to get food in that way. And also looking at system lenses. So in the middle here, we have a picture of moose, and we did an event kind of talking about accessing wild game in urban settings. So there's a lot of laws put into place to not be able to have this food accessible to us. And as well, not only Indigenous, but also non-Indigenous all over Canada and Turtle Island. So, you know, looking at self-determination and healthy, culturally appropriate food. So some examples right here in the bottom right, we're in White Sand First Nation, bringing in more soil and community, some lumber for community gardens to be put into place. They're more isolated communities. So in order to be more secure, it's better to grow, you know, your food in the region that you're at, and looking at the different lands. And in Canada, we have four different seasons. So it really changes in what food we're going to be harvesting in the winter compared to the summer. So that's kind of the community-based approach that we're looking at. And kind of looking at food as medicine. You know, food is a reflection on how our body works, you know, how it feels, how our mental state is, and looking at food at a holistic approach that I think is super important, of knowing where your food is coming from and knowing that the land is healthy and where your food is coming from as well. So looking at scientific, traditional, ecological knowledge on, you know, there's so many medicines all around this world. And I think, you know, with that capitalism and colonial mindset where it's, you know, pharmaceuticals are just not the best source. And I think there's other ways to be able to heal, you know, and healing with the land. And with that is education. So there's a poster here that we made for our, for my work. It's a traditional harvesting food map. So instead of a 12-month calendar, we have 13 moons. Traditionally, this is how we would tell what time of year, what kind of food would be present in each moon. So right now in Canada, and where I'm at in Ontario is we're in the budding moon. So everything is growing, and all those little buds have so much nutrients in there. And you're able to eat that to get any like vitamin C, vitamin D and E, and all the good nutrients that you need. And looking at the moon and looking at the land for the, you know, the reflection and connecting to what food you're going to be eating at that time is is important. You know, food is a gift from Creator. It is sacred and cannot be constrained or recalled by colonial laws, policies, and institutions. Indigenous food is fundamentally achieved by upholding our sacred responsibility to nurture healthy, independent relationships with the land, plants, animals that provide us with our food. So, you know, looking at food and the land with respect, reciprocity, and gratitude, and looking at the Indigenous mindset of the land and food and sustainable practices of you only ever take, when you find food, you only, or berries, you only take half of what you need, or you only take what you need in order to share with your community. And as nations, as Indigenous people, we would trade amongst other people. So if a family was harvesting moose, they would be able to trade with family who had picked berries or as wild rice. And that's like that community base of looking at food in a healthy and holistic way. So localized food economies, you know, getting food that's accessible near your land and in your area, and as well as, you know, gardening and supporting local farms and get like more sustainable ways of getting food, and a need for national and local governments to provide more funding for community initiatives like this. I think that's one that I've kind of run into. It's hard. It's just a grassroots organization that I work at, so there's little capacity. But I think it is about educating our people, our young people, about different ways of looking at food. And, you know, with the sustainable ways of how we're getting food, I think that relates to the climate change advocacy, because, you know, we're taking care of that food, and we got to think always about 7 generations after us. You know, what are we doing now to help our land, and how can we be healthy as communities, as people, and even globally. You know, I think we all have a lot of healing to do in this world, and food is medicine. And I love food, and we all love food. But miigwech, and thank you for inviting, and miigwech, thank you.
Thank you so much. I love food too. I can relate. Yeah, thank you so much for that beautiful presentation. Indeed, we have to rethink and consider the future and how we can build a sustainable food system. It has been an amazing discussion, amazing presentations, and ideas being shared. We are going to have an open discussion, and I'll give the floor to some of the panelists who want to comment or share new ideas about the dialogue we've had so far. Meanwhile, there is this question about what are the ways, or what is the role, what are some of the roles the youth can play in the food system? So it is open for everyone. The attendees can put their comments in the session, the chat session, sorry, and also the panelists can go ahead and speak to us. So it's an open discussion. We are all welcome to speak.
I think there is also a question to Shelby in the Q&A section.
Okay. Ms. Shelby, please. I understand there is a question for you.
Yeah, for sure. Do you think the game food can substitute agriculture? Okay. I don't think that it could substitute. You know, I think we see the land now, and there's a decrease in these wild animals and games, and I think we should hold time for them to regenerate. And it's also different in around the globe too. So I think there is agriculture needed in different parts of the world, but the context of Canada and Indigenous sovereignty, I think, you know, we should be kind of looking more to the land for food, but really important to have agriculture included in with getting food from the land.
Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you very much. Please, if there's any other question that has not been addressed, maybe someone can draw my attention to for discussion.
Maybe you can ask the audience to raise their hand, or we can move forward.
Yeah, please. Yeah, the audience, if someone wants to Please, you can raise your hand. Okay.
There's a raised hand from Garang.
All right. Please, the person can go ahead.
Yeah, so greetings to all of you. So my question was a simple one. It is directed to Ms. Adroniki.
Adroniki.
I don't know if I'm pronouncing it well, but it's that. So I did not understand one concept, which is about the forest biomass recycling. I don't know, like, what does it tackle? What does it work with? If it's something that works with getting wood from the forest to burn, I didn't understand well, so I wanted a simple clarification. Thanks.
Okay.
Hello. So, you're pronouncing my name just fine. It's Androniki. So yes, the forest wood biomass idea, it's not about cutting down the trees, but it's about using like parts of the forest that otherwise would not be used, such as shrubs or already fallen trees, and the byproducts of, like a cutting wood facility. It would leave back like the chips of the trees and some pellets. So the facility is taking that forest wood biomass, the shrubs and like all the little things that are not usually used, and it's creating them into pellets that were later used to heat and warm the school of the area during the winter months, because the wood pellets, they burn cleaner, so it's again better for the environment. And the whole idea of using the parts that are usually left out from the forest, like the shrubs, this is also going back to the sustainability approach. And yeah, it was sort of a recycling idea, because you use these parts that are usually discarded to make them into, let's say, some sort of fuel, the wood pellets, to warm the school of the area. And yeah, that's it. That's the idea.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Please, if anyone has any other comment, I can't see any other hand raised here yet.
Okay, we can now move to the next session.
Okay, so please, I would invite Mr. Egu Anthony to give us a wrap up of emerging issues and the next steps of this session.
Okay, thank you very much. I can say good evening, good morning, and really from wherever part of the world where you are. It's a pleasure that this evening, this afternoon, and this morning, from depending on where you are, we've been able to join together as global youth discussing a vital topic. And I would really sincerely like to thank all the panelists and also thank all the colleagues here at the Secretariat who have been behind the curtains to put this event together. From our side, I would like again most sincerely to thank Fred from the Mastercard Foundation for accepting to grace this event by delivering that very nice and wonderful keynote address that puts across really part of the conversation around where the youth should be and the place of the youth, and really how individual institutions are looking at the place of the youth as transformative in terms of the agenda. Now, from my side, I would like also to sincerely thank Dr. Nakaiwa for doing the initial wrap-up opening in terms of putting and setting the scene for this event today. Now, I would like just to highlight a few key issues that have emerged, but generally there is a convergence on several issues, and most of these rotate around the place of the youth and agriculture as an opportunity and an enabler for youth employment. And that is part of the key conversation that will have to be taken forward and to be filled into the food systems summit, food systems summit and issues. So really, we appreciate coming from Fred the issue and the underlying issue of agriculture as opportunity that can provide dignified work for the young people, and the need to mobilize young people around agriculture in different parts of the agricultural value chain, and recognizing the fact that not every young person is supposed to be on the farm, but there are several places and parts of the agricultural value chain where young people's talent and innovation can be placed, and they can meaningfully contribute to the sector in the different parts of the agricultural value chain, and looking at it from the food systems direction. And this is really what we actually talk about, that agriculture can be cool. Agriculture is cool. And if young people can define and find themselves within the different parts of the agricultural value chain, their participation in agriculture will be meaningful and viable. We highlighted the issues around ensuring, therefore, that looking at that, there is need to include and have youth inclusion in agriculture, issues of involving youth in decision-making, as well as the greater realization that youth can immensely contribute through technology and technology innovation, technology advancement, as well as technology translation. There was the recognition that as we begin to engage with communities and begin to work with different communities at different levels, we need to appreciate that there are different approaches to use, and therefore need to ramp up building up from the bottom-up approach, utilize and ensure that youth are empowered, as well as there is inclusivity of different actors within the communities and groups that we work with, so that then leads us to a more sustainable approach. But we also received quite a very good, fiery presentation from Anthony that highlighted the issue around business, that it is really a demonstration that young people, there are opportunities in agriculture. You can grow wealth, not poverty. You can grow employment opportunities, and you can be a smart and serious young person in agriculture. This was real sort of encouraging young people to explore their full potential within the environment and within the agriculture. Really looking at that, if we are importing this excess amount of this spending much in food imports, then we can be able to change those into opportunities where we can be able to harvest money, not to cry that we are harvesting poverty. So in terms of, there is also the issue that we need to unpack and understand that we require different parts of innovation, and innovations in food production, innovation in food science, innovation in food technology, and innovations in post-harvest. And these are pattern building blocks to ensuring that we are in position to increase the opportunities that are transformative, that can address bottlenecks and barriers within the food system. Now, in terms of the issue, that part of the issue also from, with experience from Greece, one of the things that was really eye-catching and the part of the challenge which is shared, common to also part of Africa, is really this issue of family business succession. Where many people, young people, are running out of agriculture. So the question is really how to begin to ensure and encourage young people be attracted to agriculture. And part of the solution were presented, and the issues around ensuring agriculture as a sustainable that builds for the present as well as the future generations, around innovation. there was a very interesting look at how we can utilize natural systems and ecosystems, an ecosystem approach, really to utilize to respond to ecological challenges and environmental challenges based on the experience of dealing with locusts within China. And this coming from mainly where we are increasingly having a lot of invasive pests as well as invasive species. That becomes a very key cornerstone for us to begin to build better and scientific experiences that need to be further taken forward, and therefore increase collaboration and cross-learning across the regions and across the continents. And looking at the indigenous food systems, they call for issues to decolonize the indigenous food systems, decolonize our food systems, encourage the issues of ensuring that we're able to support local communities, we're able to connect with local communities, and we're able to support the processes to regain local knowledge, because traditional knowledge is very central to ensuring sustainability of food systems. So I thought that these are sort of the key overarching issues in general that sort of emerged from this conversation. And I would like to sincerely thank the young people that have been able to deliver all these key issues and takeaway messages for their immense contribution. That, yes, thank you very much. We shall file this process in the process report to the UN Food Systems Summit. And from my side, to really sincerely thank you for your positiveness in terms of participating in this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and thank you to everybody. It's been an amazing session, an amazing program, very informative, very inspiring, and very educative. My name is Akwama Yeba Victoria, and I've been your moderator for today. I'm a student of a university in Costa Rica, but I'm a Ghanaian by origin, and I'm so glad and I'm honored to have led this session as the moderator. And we always have the chance to build something better, to build a world where healthy foods are provided to everyone and sustainable environment, economic and social systems are created. If what we have discussed today are implemented, the world is in good hands and is indeed promising. So just by wrapping up, I also thank the organizers again for organizing this session. And also on behalf of the Regional Universities Forum for Capacity Building in Agriculture, I would also like to thank all the panelists for sharing these wonderful ideas, and to all the participants for making time to make this program a success. It's been amazing, and I hope that you're also invited to stay connected to RUF Forum on social media, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Thank you all for your participation, and hope to see you